We're here for the Week 12 waiver wire. I'm going to keep it a stack with you. This might be the WOT waiver wire in all of my years of doing fantasy football. All right? It's bad. We're going to go through it for y'all's sake, but just understand you're not going to enjoy this video. Week 12 is an unnecessarily big bye week. Also, Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Saints, Jets, Jaguars. There's a lot of firepower on bye this week, and a week where there are not a lot of great waiver wire options. We're going to go through the list as we always do, point out the players that you need to be targeting on it, maybe spending some fab on it, dropping a waiver wire bid on it, and then dudes that we can quickly go through are droppable. All right. Most of the quarterbacks right now, I like that Sleeper has Taysom Hill still in as a quarterback. Obviously, if Taysom Hill's available, he is on bye this week, but he is a top 5 tight end going forward. We've been telling you to pick him up for the better part of like a month now. So with that being said, we're going to keep moving on. Bo Nix is 60% owned. Tommy DeVito, I think we should maybe talk about it from a super flex standpoint. He won a few games for the Giants last year. He is starting over Drew Lock going forward for at least, the foreseeable future. The matchup is great against Tampa Bay. They have allowed a shitload of points to fantasy quarterbacks and just passing offenses in general. Tommy DeVito, he can move around a little bit, right? He's like them chicken cutlets fucking popping in the pan. So he's got a little bit of a rushing floor. He's obviously got just a low floor in general with him being not an NFL caliber starting quarterback. He's not one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the world. And that eventually becomes a problem. But on a 1 week, 2 week sample size, you could absolutely do worse in your super flex spot. Again, with all of those quarterbacks on bye, with some injuries, all that kind of stuff. I think DeVito will put you up, 12 if he gets lucky, in the 15, 16 range in a super flex league. That is important at this time of the year. Going forward, Stafford's highly owned, Geno's highly owned, Goff is highly owned. What are they giving us this list for? Drake May, if he is ready to go in your league, then I would definitely look for him. He still has his bye in week 12, but he's put up such good fantasy numbers. Anytime they have a matchup with teams that don't have a strong defense, it's going to be a shootout game. But let's move on. Running backs, there's no one real available here. Everybody is just some sort of handcuff, high upside guys. You've got the Blake Corums, you've got the Trey Bensons. I would say the one dude that I feel like kind of took a jump up this week would be Roschon Johnson. He's used differently in the new coaching scheme than he was previously, and I talked about this a lot yesterday in the full game-by-game recap live stream. If they use him the same way going forward, we should expect goal line carries from Roschon. We should expect some pass-catching work because he played upwards of 80% of long down and distance snaps, short down and distance snaps, goal line snaps, as well as 2-minute drill snaps. He monopolized all of those categories of snaps from DeAndre Swift. So Roschon seems to have a real role. He got 10 carries for the first time since week 5, like a real role with this new coaching staff, this new OC. So we'll see if that could pick up. I'm obviously not starting him against Minnesota this week. Again, I'm more looking at the role that he has and if that's consistent going forward, because if it is and they get better matchups down the stretch, which honestly they don't really have a lot of great matchups. I think they play Minnesota, they play Detroit twice, San Fran, Minnesota twice. Yeah, it's not great. But overall, listen, he's a high-end handcuff to Swift, and it seems like he might have some standalone value if you're really, really in a pinch right now. But yeah, the running backs are absolutely fucking bare this week. Wide receivers, kind of the same thing, man. Anyone under 50% owned is pretty much not worth owning. I am surprised MVS is still down here at 35%. Because MVS has now had back-to-back games with 80-plus yards and at least one touchdown. Obviously, it's just big play after big play after big play, but that's the type of ability he brings to an offense, and I think there are still probably 1 or 2 more games like that. So he's just as likely to give you a big play as he is to give you 0 plays, but I think there are teams that need that kind of stuff, and that kind of upside, like you can continue to put out players that have a semi-okay floor with just as bad of a ceiling as an MVS right now because all of their players are hurt. He's going to continue to run a lot of routes and at least get some targets game in and game out. And Derek Carr's got an underrated deep ball, man. He looks good when he's slinging the thing downfield. So with MVS, like most players are going to have the same floor that MVS has on a weekly basis that you're getting off the wire, but very few of them actually have the upside that he does. So you could do worse. And I think it's not just like a fluke on a week by week basis, but he will be low floor, high ceiling. He's kind of like a Walmart version of Jameson Williams right now. Elijah Moore is down at 19%. The Cleveland wide receiver room is one that it's weird because Jameis has thrown so many passes since he's taken over the starting quarterback. It's been above 40 in every start that he's had, which has led to a very condensed target share between 4 players. 4 players and 4 players only. It's Njoku, it's Cedric Tillman, it's Elijah Moore, and it's Jerry Jeudy. Now, last week we got the Jeudy and the Elijah Moore touchdown. The weeks prior, we got the Cedric Tillman touchdowns, and David Njoku score. You know what I mean? Like, you're playing whack-a-mole as far as touchdowns are concerned, but all of these guys are getting targets week over week over week. Now, they have a very tough matchup in Pittsburgh, and this is on Thursday night. And one thing to note for this game is the weather forecast right now is supposed to be pretty damaging to the game and the upside of the game. If you had to guess what the over-under was, Pittsburgh, obviously their offense is playing well. Cleveland's throwing the ball 1,000 times. You would guess like it's a decent over-under, right? 43, 44, maybe even 45 points. The over-under right now is at 36.5 points. That is unbelievably low. That's like a Titans versus Carolina type over-under. This is strictly because of the weather. So it's a massive downgrade to all the pass-catching weapons if the weather holds up for the Thursday Night Football game here. So just be weary of that. Moore definitely needs to be owned, though, because he's getting 8, 9, 10 targets a game. Don't expect him to score very often, but I do think he gives you a really nice PPR floor. And while we're talking about full wide receiver rooms, we can touch on Carolina. They come off of their bye, and it's weird because I think there are 3 players, maybe even 4 players in the pass-catching options of Bryce Young that are worth talking about, which is insane because Bryce Young is averaging about 170 passing yards per game over the last 3 games. It's Adam Thielen coming off of the bye, coming off of IR. He will be playing in Week 12. It's a tough matchup versus Kansas City. You have Jalen Coker, who previous to the bye commanded over 30% of the team's targets. And if you guys watched the game in Germany, he looked like the better player. He looked like he had better chemistry with Bryce Young than Xavier Legette did. Legette continues to score a shitload of touchdowns. Like every time that man is on the field, he is scoring a touchdown, but you don't really want to rely on that going forward, especially as you're adding more pieces to this offense, especially as you're adding Adam Thielen into the mix, especially as you're adding Jonathan Brooks into the mix, both of which will be playing in Week 12. It gets tricky to target a dude like Xavier Legette. So Adam Thielen is definitely someone that should be owned. We don't know how the pecking order is going to distribute itself. We don't even know where the routes are going to start being run. Like, Legette will be an outside player. Is Jalen Coker a slot guy now because he was running 50% of the routes from the slot prior to the bye when Adam Thielen wasn't in the lineup? Thielen is definitely the most well-equipped to be a slot player because at his age, it's a lot more difficult to separate on the outside. So it might be Coker and it might be Legette on the outside and then Thielen running inside. We don't really know. Regardless, it's hard to buy into anyone in this offense for more than like 3 to 5% of your fab because of the low volume passing attack, because of the low pass yardage attack. And Bryce Young is not ever throwing for more than, 2 touchdowns in a game. And even that is probably a decent chunk of plus money in Vegas. So my number one pickup in the wide receiver room would be Elijah Moore. But as you could tell by my mood, I ain't excited about that shit. We can move to the tight end position. We talked about Taysom Hill. Jonnu Smith obviously needs to be very highly owned. He's been a fucking beast. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Zach Ertz is a pretty good play this week. They get a pretty easy matchup with Dallas. Although I could see this game going like just an unbelievable amount of carries to the running backs here and just having them do what Joe Mixon did last night to him in terms of Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler and Jeremy McNichols and Chris Robert. Like, there might be 40 carries between the running backs against Dallas in this one, so I don't know if they're going to have to throw the ball too much, but Ertz is up and down. At least he gives you some ceiling games, though. Hunter Henry, I can't believe he's under 50% owned. That is insane. He would be a top priority pickup as well for me, and I think you can plug and play him. He has seen really solid production since Drake May has taken over as the quarterback. Noah Gray, absolutely not. K-Dot, 86% owned. For streaming defenses, we have a pretty simple set of rules. You want to pick up a defense that is favored to win their game. If they are at home, that is a heavy plus, and the bigger the spread, the better. So some options for this week. Detroit, minus 7.5 in Indy. So they are on the road, but 7.5 points is a nice little number there. The Dolphins are at home as 7-point favorites against the Patriots, so that on paper is fantastic. Washington, 10.5-point favorites at home versus Dallas. They would be the number one pickup by far amongst defenses that are probably available in your league. They should be your top priority. For streaming defenses, Tampa Bay, 5.5-point favorites on the road in New York against Tommy DeVito, so they're another solid streaming option. We have a lot of lopsided games this week, so I think you have a lot of streaming options. Kansas City, 11-point favorites in Carolina, so they're probably owned in your league, but they'd be another streaming option. Houston at home, 8-point favorites against Tennessee. I love them as an option. Denver, 5.5 points in Las Vegas. Another good option. Outside of them, every other game is too close to really like the defense above the opposing offense. But those are probably my top options there. And we can move into the ad drop list. All right, so we have Dawson Knox up there. And honestly, I think I'd hold on to Dawson Knox another week. I think there's a decent chance that Dalton Kincaid misses one more week after their Week 12 bye. Herbert's is droppable. Pearsall would definitely hold on to. Gesicki's droppable. Deontay Johnson has kind of been droppable. Jones, of course, droppable. Aldrick Estime, I would definitely hold on to for another week or two. Matchup against Las Vegas, I could see them going very, very run-heavy here. And obviously, you just never know what you're going to get from fucking Sean Payton in that backfield. So Tolbert is droppable with Cooper Rush under center. Tucker Kraft, I'd hold on to. Jake Ferguson is droppable. There are probably other better tight end streaming options. Marcus Robinson doesn't need to be owned, but not someone I'm going out of my way to drop. Tank Bigsby, I would probably hold on to and just see how that backfield shakes up over the bye. If he is back in the lineup, it's possible that Trevor Lawrence is also back in the lineup there. So it might just be a better offense going forward. They might fire Peterson and just have a little bit more spark going forward. Jordan Mason's a high-end handcuff. Probably want to hold on to him. Romeo Doubs, much better days ahead for that Packers offense in Chicago. Weather, bad matchup there. They'll click again. So I would hold on to Romeo Doubs. I would definitely hold on to Ingram. Mechie is droppable. Davis is out for the year, droppable, which does make Parker Washington, I guess, an okay pickup, given the fact that Trevor Lawrence might be back. But I'd hold on another week because you're not going to have to use a roster spot on Parker Washington throughout the bye. Pitts hold on to. Madison hold on to because we have no real practice report or analysis yet on Madison and Zamir White, who both got banged up on Sunday. So if one misses, the other one gets a big boost in value and vice versa. Cole Kmet, I would probably hold on to. He finally saw like a really, really nice increase in snaps, and we saw the offense start to run a little bit smoother. He was up to 97% of the snaps, so no more getting cute between Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. He's a full-time player, and I think better days are ahead. Shepard, I think it's fine to drop if you want to. Singletary is a high-end handcuff with Tyrone Tracy there. Kincaid, if you absolutely need the roster spot, I don't want to drop him, but I think it's okay to do so. Mason Tipton, you can definitely drop. Gus Edwards actually probably should have been on the ad portion of this video. Gus Edwards is a tricky one, I guess. I mean, he's not tricky. You know what you're getting out of him. You're getting like 6 to 10 carries for 40 yards. Maybe he scores a touchdown, but we're getting J.K. Dobbins goal line carries. We are getting Hassan Haskins goal line carries. Gus Edwards is a 0 in the passing game. He is a 0 in the breakaway game. So to me, like, if you're putting him in, you are hoping that it's a really good matchup, which it's not against Baltimore on Monday night, and they just overproduce and overscore, and that means goal line carries for Gus Edwards, and hopefully he has 30, 40 yards and a touchdown, which is actually really sad when you say it out loud. If that's what you're hoping for, then you probably don't need to roster him. But if something were to happen to J.K. Dobbins, then you're looking at a guy who could have the upside of, like, multi-touchdown games on the horizon. So not someone I'm going out and spending more than like 3%, 5% of my fab on, but Gus Edwards should be rosterable. Algier, another high-end handcuff. Nothing more I could really say there. Brown is droppable. Keon Coleman, if you have the room, I'd hold on to. Otherwise, like, if you really need the space right now, it's not that big of a deal. Definitely do not drop Darnell Mooney. Definitely do not drop Mark Andrews. Keaton Mitchell is probably droppable. He didn't play much in their last game, and Justice Hill seems to be a real staple of that team. Braylon Allen, high-end handcuff, nothing you don't know. Kareem Hunt, definitely don't drop yet. We got to see if Isaiah Pacheco is even active for this game. If he doesn't, Kareem Hunt gets to play Carolina, and that is like the nut draw matchup, and Kareem Hunt might score 25 points in that game. So definitely do not drop Kareem Hunt either, despite poor game and Pacheco returning. All right, that's all we got for the waiver wire. I told you it was going to be quick. Told you it was not going to be flashy. It was not going to be fun. You are just going to have to get that into your face hole, and it's going to hurt, and we're past it, and we're on to week 13. All right, I'll see you tomorrow for the running back preview. I'll see you Thursday for the wide receiver preview. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to hear about that shit. All right, love you. Smoochies.